I think it's maybe going to be a juicy slash triggering one. So, oh, Denise, I'm going to grab that. I'm going to just like talk about this topic for 1 second, and then, but I will answer that for sure. Cool. Hey, Jess. Hey, Mary. Summer home with the kids has been no joke this year. Oh my gosh, sending you all the love. You're in the home stretch. It's August 7th. Like you're almost there. Okay, so I think it's like I said, a little juicy, a little triggering. We'll see, all of the above, right? But basically, what I want to say is, I feel like I don't feel like I think this is like true, but I've been talking about this a little bit, but I do think that like what it takes to grow now is truly different than it's been before, right? Like when I started in this business, which was gosh, almost 8 years ago at this point, right? Like you just like made some posts and that was kind of it, you know? And like the algorithms didn't behave in quite the way they did. It was easier to get reach in a different way. Like there was less noise in our industry. There was more trust. Like there are so many factors that have changed so much over time. And I think a couple things happen with that. I think either we're hearing from people that built a really long time ago saying, oh, it's still that way, and getting really, really confused by that. Or we're hearing from people going like, you shouldn't have to do any work. Like if you're working more than, a 4-hour work week or 10 hours a week in your business, you're doing it wrong. Meanwhile, like being in the day to day going, well, okay, I hear that. And I'm not supposed to like work so much, or, it's supposed to look like I'm just supposed to make a post and everyone's supposed to flood in and hire me. Then we get really in our heads and make ourselves wrong, or we just get fucking confused because it's like, well, what I'm hearing versus what I'm like experiencing feel very, very disconnected. And so I'm not really sure what to do with that. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about today is I feel like that is a really big challenge right now is that, well, let me say it in a different way. I feel like the big challenge right now is that what people want to or are willing to do versus what is most required to grow and scale they're different right now. I think what people want to do is less than ever. And I think what is required for growth is more than ever. And this is obviously a very broad generalization, but I'm just going to say it like that. And again, I'm not making anyone wrong. It's totally okay that people are like overwhelmed by social media and don't want to do all the things. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But I think it's worth saying because it feels like this tension point. And then what happens is then the marketing that says, oh, you don't have to do more. What are you talking about? The social media isn't the problem. Or, the algorithm isn't the problem, gets to us a lot. And we're like, oh, okay, then what am I missing? And it goes down this whole rabbit hole. And so again, not that social media or the algorithm is always the problem. Like I'm certainly a believer in like, don't base your whole business on the algorithm, but I'm just saying the reality that things have changed needs to get talked about too, because if not, I think it can make us feel crazy and it can make us buy into all of these marketing things that are trying to tell us it's just in our head, Steph said, yes, pitch for your next podcast guest to have someone who started more recently and is growing from early stages. Oh, I love that, Steph. Thank you. Michelle says, I feel like the reason people want to do less is because for 10 years, the online space has been like, just get online and make millions. Well, at first it was 6 figures and now it's millions. Yeah, I agree with that, Michelle. Like, I really do. I think like there's gotten to be, I said this in the email about this, but I think there's gotten to be almost this like quite toxic mentality of like, you shouldn't have to work. And I think that it's like we just get on, you guys know my thing is always this, right? But it's like we get on such far ends of the spectrum and the middle ground is almost always what's true. Like, yes, you don't have to hustle your face off and get burnout, but you also do have to work in your business if you want your business to grow. And like the middle ground is real and relevant. And I think more relevant now than ever because it's not as simple as like show up online, tell someone you're a coach and make millions. It's just not, Hey, Steph. Hey, Nita. Thank you guys for being here. It's just not that. So I think like that discrepancy is real. And I also think as coaches, it gets really frustrating for people too. Like I've had this conversation with plenty of people recently of like them kind of being like, I'm feeling frustrated with clients because it's like they want these really big results, but they also don't feel like they should have to show up and do a lot for them. And like, I get why they feel that tension because there's a lot of confusing messaging around that. But also it's like quite hard to support that too. So I just want to talk about that a little bit more because I think it's really relevant from both perspectives. Yeah, exactly. We have to work, Anita said, but not all the time. Yes, perfectly said. Hey, Ariel. Michelle says, when you say you do have to work, I laugh at the fact that I have no idea how my challenges or my course or even my one-on-one program would exist without the time and energy I poured into them, especially on the front end. Exactly. Like, exactly. It's like these things work because we put work in. And honestly, that's even true as you grow and scale a bunch too. Like I always say, like, you don't have to work in your business, but your business, like all the time, but your business has to have work done in it, right? So like maybe you have a team leader that's doing more for you or whatever, but it's like work still has to happen within your business. And I also think like I'll just share some stuff from my perspective that I think is helpful is like we are in a post chat GPT era. And I think people don't realize how impactful that's already been in the sense that like, even just putting out like old content or, not even old content, but just kind of that like direct content that chat GPT could have written. It's just like that used to work better than it does right now. Like now I feel like we have to be more in the storytelling and the personalization and stuff like that, because if not, it's like, there's 5,000 of those same things going out today on the internet that, probably half were written by ChatGPT. And so even for me, as someone who has a very, very, very large content bank and always preaches content repurposing, I have been writing more now than I maybe ever have for years in my business because I just see that that's what's working better. And so I mean, we still have team and we still repurpose a lot. I'm not saying we don't. Actually, I think Megan and I talked all about how we do that last live stream, not last week, but the week before. So anyway, if you're curious about that, you can go there. I won't like go into that in super detail, but I'm only saying that to say like, even for myself, I have made changes to how I show up, how I operate, in terms of a changing environment. And I think that's just relevant, I'm not going to be a fucking idiot in my business. It's super obvious what's working. You can just do that, So yeah, I've had to rework some things. I've had to change up, in my schedule, like when do I have time for these things? When do I put effort into this? But like, I would be so silly to be at a point in my business where I saw this shift in our industry and I saw things changing and I didn't go, maybe I should go with that. You know what I mean? Hold on, guys. I just realized that I didn't plug in my computer, which is not why it's considering that I am on a live stream. Let me do that. Okay. Thank you, Alessia. Oh, yay. I'm so glad you guys are liking them. Yeah. See, like, it makes sense. And that's what I'm personally liking more too lately, again, because I feel like, chat GPT world has just changed a lot. Hey, Lucy, but I think, it's really helpful to hear that feedback from you guys. And it's like, obviously the time put into those is worth it, right? My people are liking it. I'm hearing good feedback. Like they're obvious, like there's like obvious metrics behind those that are showing it's making a difference. But yes, it is practically taking more of my time, like kind of that simple. So anyway, I say that to say like things really are different, or even like, I feel like it used to be easier to repurpose across platforms, and we still do that, but we do it in a way that takes more thought and intention, right? Like, if I post a carousel on Instagram, when we repurpose that to Facebook, we do that in a different way. Like it takes an extra step, it takes extra time. So again, it's just to say like things have evolved. Where like before, I used to post the exact same thing in my Facebook group as on Instagram, as whatever, and it worked and it was fine. It didn't fucking matter. That is not the game anymore, right? That is not the algorithm game anymore. That is not the platform game anymore. Excuse me. And there's nothing even bad about that, right? Like, I think that's important to say. It's not like, oh, those were the good old days and these are the shitty days. Like, that's not it at all, but it's just to say, like, we are in a time where it takes more than I put 5 repurposed posts up this week, called it a day, and I'm making millions. Like, I really just think that's true. Hey, Natalie, welcome. And I think it's worth saying. And I think it's also worth saying that, like, that is not what a lot of people are coming into this space looking for. So I think it creates a bit of tension, and or they're coming in hearing a message from like years ago, like Michelle was saying earlier, of like, oh yeah, you just like post a few things, and if you write it correctly, you'll make millions. And it's like, there's so much more to it than that. Michelle says, I feel like the big difference between a ChatGPT post and a personalized one is ChatGPT, here's the strategy, personalized post, here's my personal experience and the lessons learned from implementing such strategy. Right. And it's not even bad to have like a, here's the strategy post at all. But if that's all you're doing, it's going to be harder to stand out right now. You know what I mean? I certainly still have those strategy posts because I think they're meaningful and important, but they're not it anymore, you know? And I think that's just important to say, like how I've, you know, adjusted myself, how I've adjusted the strategies and feedback I'm giving to clients is considerable. And I think that it's important to say these things, because if not, I think it's so easy to internalize like, oh, what's wrong with us? That has never used ChatGPT. Okay, well, I actually do highly recommend using ChatGPT. It is so useful in so many ways. Are you still of the mindset in this environment that every strategy can work if you work it long enough and keep measuring and tweaking? Yes, but like, I think the point is like, are you using a strategy that like is a proven strategy that works? Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like, if what we mean by that is like, I'm, you know, whatever, repurposing a Facebook Live to TikTok every day and expecting that to work. Like, no, but that's not a strategy that works. Like, do I believe if you had a good TikTok strategy and went all in on that and kept working it, that it would work? Absolutely. But I think we have to be willing to like update what the strategies are for what's working, you know, in our current zone. But like, you know, again, like do Facebook groups still work? Do live streams still work? Yeah, I really believe they do. I think there's like a lot to learn and test and tweak there though. Michelle said, so true. I think our content is a body of work. And when I'm creating new content, there's a pull of what am I inspired to create and what is needed to round out this body of work, which is so funny since we've been talking about a lot about content in the last few days. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, we really want to see this as like a new evolution of things. And I think if we can get on board with that and get excited about that, you know, something I've like really trained my brain and mindset for in my business is to like get excited for new things, to get excited for changes, to get excited when things shift. I'm like, okay, yay, I get to like write more personal posts and double down on that. And like, I'm like now at a point where it makes sense to spend more time on that. Amazing, you know, versus it feeling really bad. But again, I think what's really tough right now is that back to that point of like what people want to do versus what is, you know, consistently getting results is different. Like, I feel like a lot of people are really put off on the idea that they would have to like show up and put out content really consistently anymore, or show up and like look at data or learn from their audience or do market research or get on a call. Like, there's such this weird entitlement that I feel like has kind of seeped into our space a bit. That is like, I shouldn't have to. And like, of course you don't have to, but I think that it can get really difficult when we hear that a lot, because then it feels like, well, there's something wrong with me if I need to, right? And my point that I want to make today is I do believe that like, yeah, I think people are just a little bit more burnt out on social media than they've ever been and all of those kind of things. And so I think it's totally okay if you're feeling like, man, the grind of showing up for that is something I need to shift or something I need to figure out what feels good to me. But at the same time, like, I have to treat this business like a business and know like what actually works to move it forward. Let's see. I'm not, now that I have used ChatGPT and think it's amazing, but no, I'm not using it to its full potential. When you say it's useful in so many ways, what are the top things you think it's useful for? Oh my gosh, so many things. I think like it's my business partner in Dateable, Jen, said this to me, and it's always like really been how I've thought about ChatGPT. But she basically said the way she uses it is she treats it like she's talking to the smartest person in the world. So like for ideation, for something where you're like, oh, I think this is good, but this could be better, or I'm like have a question about this, or like what would this process look like built all the way out, or anything like that. Like it's kind of interesting to just like think about what would you ask the smartest person in the world if they were sitting in front of you. That's kind of how I think about it in business and even life, and how I always use it. Like even like for my toddler, I'll be like, okay, like if the smartest person in the world was sitting in front of me, I'd be like, what is like the meal plan I should feed my toddler this week? And I'll ask ChatGPT. Now, I don't take everything it says at face value, but it does always like bring up a lot of ideas for me, which helps. Shari said, I agree that the personal experience and perspective is resonating a lot. I think it's probably connected to the trust formation and seeking out more humanness behind the content. Totally agree with that. Khaleesi said, some people in our industry kind of make it seem like as long as you show up and you want it enough, you're entitled to a business, but business isn't like that. I'm so grateful you tell it like it is. Yes. Yes, that is, these are facts. Thank you for saying that. It's so true. So I also think another thing that's interesting is I feel like this has been like a less exciting time in our industry, like for however you want to say that. I think there was this like huge influx of like so many people. There was so much excitement in our space. So many people were like sharing all these financial wins. It was like there was like a real like I don't know, momentum, excitement behind it. And I feel like that has shifted a bit, and where there has just been like a less exciting time in our space, I think, as like things recalibrate, as trust gets rebuilt, all of those kind of things. But I also think that so often people find it really, really, really difficult to maintain consistency in less exciting times. And I think that's really important to look at too. Like, do you have the right support to help you do that? Do you have things outside of your business that bring you excitement without always needing to rely on that from the business? Do you have passions inside your business that aren't just about the money? Like, do you treat your business like a business? Do you see it as like, I'm here to solve this problem and I have to treat this like a business? Like, those things will help you maintain consistency, even when it's not like the most exciting, like, oh my God, like, manic vibes in our space. And I think that, that's something that I want to say too, is that anyone who's been in business for any length of time knows that these ebbs and flows happen, and figuring out how to ride them, like when the excitement is there, how to capitalize on it, when it's less so, how to ride that wave, like those are so important. And I feel like that's a thing too. It's almost like people only want to be driven by the mania or the excitement or whatever. And I just think that's like an unsustainable way to run a business. And I think it's very much like Alicia was just saying about like, you just show up and you're entitled to it. And it's like, no, you actually have to solve people's problems, right? You actually have to like market, you have to run the business, you have to treat it like a business. So for me, all of those things are like accurate to things I do for myself to maintain that consistency, right? Like I have things outside of my business that bring me a lot of joy, where I'm not looking for it through the business in every moment. I have passions inside the business. Like I'm so passionate about one-on-one, and like, yes, I care about the money, but it's not just about that. Like I'm very fulfilled by that. So even if we're going through a more challenging season, like that fulfillment is still there. And I really do treat the business like a business. Like, yes, I'm so excited about it. I love my clients, like all of that's true. And I'm very clear that like this business exists to solve a problem for someone else, not just to like, feed me any amount of money I want anytime I want it. Again, not that it can't, or not that it can't be exciting. I'm not trying to like, be the bearer of bad news today. Like you have to work hard and shit sucks and it's not exciting. Like I really do not want this to come across like that. But I really do want to say, like, yes, things have shifted. Yes, we have to strategically shift with them. Yes, sometimes might be less exciting than others, and knowing how to ride that out as a CEO is one of the most valuable gifts you can give yourself. So I think it's just that balance of both. And I really do think things are shifting, and probably like some excitement is picking up, and that's okay too. Like that can be a fun time too. Like none of it is bad or wrong. It's just like, was I only in it because I thought I didn't have to do a lot of work, or I thought there was all this excitement. Well, then this might not be the thing. Am I in it because there are other pieces driving me and I really do want to solve this problem for people and I really do want this to be a long-term thing? Then that's obviously different. So I feel like it's worth saying that. Michelle says, curious what you mean when you say treat your, oh, hey, Jordan, catching on late. So happy for you to be here. Hey, Mandy. When you say treat your business like a business, oh, shoot. My brain goes to an unanswered space of as opposed to what? Okay, we'll definitely gonna say that. Julie says, can you, hold on, let me grab these so I don't lose them because I just saw some comments moving quick. Okay. Julie says, can you share more about what you think is working now? What if? Cool. Okay. And then I have Shari's question too. Amazing. Thank you guys. These are so awesome. Okay. Oh, let me go back and answer Denise's question because I have all my questions right now. So let me do that really, really fast. So Denise's question is, I know the revenue share model is you get paid if we do, but is there an initial investment as well? Yes. So there's a base rate and a revenue share. So base rate is $12.50 a month, and then revenue share is on top of that. Let me know if that makes sense. My sales page also says that specifically if it's helpful to read it there, but yeah, there it is. Curious what you mean when you say treat your business like a business. Okay, so Michelle, I think what a lot of people do, and when I say treat your business like a business, is it almost gets so personal. Like they forget their business is there to solve a problem for someone else. So it gets so personal about like, like, what do I want to write today? Or do I actually want to talk to this client? Or, kind of like all of this stuff within it, or even just like not wanting to be consistent in doing some of those things. Like it almost feels like I feel like it's here to like meet my passions in the moment versus to like build a business and solve other people's problems. And not that you can't share your passions in your business, you don't mean that, but like I think that sometimes we really lose sight of like this business is here to make money and solve people's problems, even on the money front, right? Like I think a business is built to make money. And I'm not saying there aren't some seasons where you like invest more to make it back, but I think our industry kind of makes it seem like it's like this never ending investment thing. And you should, you like don't have to think about like how it makes money or something like that. So I think there are just these like sneaky little ways where sometimes it feels like a business, but isn't, or even like, sometimes we like could consume hours and hours and hours of content and feel like we worked really hard that day, but we actually weren't running the business at all. So anyway, I think a million little examples come up for me, but it's sort of the idea of like, is my eye on the prize? Like the business here to solve a problem that it makes money for? Like, am I focused on that? Or am I kind of going off on these 30 directions or making it really personal or getting really involved in like what the industry is telling me to do, et cetera, et cetera. You're welcome, Denise. Michelle said, yes, love that reminder about not making it personal and staying in the balance of why you created it in the first place. So hard not to personalize when it's just us in those early days. 100%. I mean, listen, it's definitely not easy to not personalize at all. But I do think that it is what kind of helps you ride through the tough times, because if the tough times are so personal, it's so difficult. If you're like, this is a business, like this is a problem I solve. Like, how do I need to adjust this problem right now? Or how do I need to like adjust my structure right now? Like there's something about that gets easier, I think. Okay, cool. Can you say more about what you think is working right now? I get the personalization advice, not repurposing before. Yes, I actually did a whole live stream on what I think is working in business right now. I think it was 3 weeks ago. I can look for it and link it up for you. Obviously not trying to be evasive and not answer your question, but it was just like, it was like a whole thing. So anyway, I can share that and we can talk like, or I can, go into depth a little bit more there about like what was working, but personalization was definitely one of them. Personal outreach was one of them. Value propositions, different things like that. Hi, Johnny. She said, I've been in a constant spiral of investing with multiple coaches at a time. And now it feels so good to take a break and implement everything I've learned, going back to the basics and taking the action steps I know to do to bring in clients I'm here to serve. I love that. And yes, that's exactly it. Like it doesn't mean you can't have support or whatever, but sometimes it's like treating the business like a business is going like, I am at my investment capacity, or, like I need to get back to basics here. And I think that's really, really beautiful. And so giving you a lot of credit for that, because I think it can be too easy to feel like that next person has the next secret or something, but kind of coming back to the basics of like, wait, like I just need to do the things I actually know to do and really show up in that way and treat the business like that is sometimes like the best thing we can do for ourselves. So I really love that. Okay, what if you feel you are in business just for the money? Like you feel people are set in a certain way and nothing you have done for years is shifting their ingrained mindset. What would you do? Let me see if I understand that question. You're just in it for the money. I feel like those are different things. Like, I feel like if you're trying and not getting through to people, then you're probably not just there for the money, right? I don't know who asked that question, unfortunately, because I was just copying them really quickly. So maybe you could tell me more there. But what I'm kind of hearing is like, if you're just in it for the money, then you're obviously probably getting through to someone if it's worth that. Or if not, there's probably another passion driving you. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, let me context there. Let me know. Natalie said, I started my first business, a cleaning company in 99 before the world of social media. I feel that it was so much easier to stay consistent because you didn't know or see what other people were doing, no comparing or shiny objects pulling you in different directions. I fully get that. Yes. It's so weird how much we're all in each other's shit and like can see it, right? I totally agree with that. It's such a different world. And Johnny said, so done with attaching my worthiness to business and shattering the beliefs that indeed women can't have it all instead of believing the story that women like me can have it. So freeing. Oh my gosh, I love that. So good. And yeah, totally. I think like you're doing the actions that say you back that, right? By being like, I'm going to do the stuff I know to do, and I'm going to show that to myself. Like, I think that's really amazing. Okay. Other question. Something I'm curious about is since most of your clients have been with you for a while, how are you noticing this market behavior taking place? Is it just for how much even established businesses are having to shift their existing strategies for growth? Yeah, I mean, I think it's all of the above, right? Like, I think obviously, like my clients have had to shift too. I was using myself as an example earlier of like, okay, I need to put more time into content creation. I need to like rethink how I'm like writing things, et cetera, et cetera. Like they're having to do the same stuff in different ways for different businesses and models. Like, just because you have a 7-figure business, like it doesn't mean your shit's on lock or you don't have to change with the industry. In fact, I think in some regard, there's more pressure to change with it because you want to maintain that. So totally, I think that this is definitely not just like if I'm new, this is a problem. I think this is definitely across the board, what are we doing kind of situation. But also I have this community. I really pay attention. I try to keep my finger on the pulse of like what's going on. I try to ask questions of my audience whenever I can. So like it's definitely from clients and seeing what's happening with them too. But I also think I do try to like, even be in the DMs or whatever. Like I just try to like see as much as I can because it's one, really interesting to me, but two, I think it's part of my job. But yeah, I think like every business should be thinking about like what do things look like for me right now? Again, whether they've been in it for a long time, even have an established client base, whatever. I think that, kind of back to that entitlement point I talked about, like something I really try to like enforce with my clients is like, we're never like entitled to success just because we've had it before. Like we're having it because we keep adjusting, because we keep adapting. And so I think like, I've seen plenty of businesses in this space think that they don't have to do that. It's like the Blockbuster example, right? Oh, fuck the internet. Like we don't have to deal with that. And then it's like, or you do. So all that to say, definitely from my own clients, I think from the industry as well. But yeah, I think even existing business owners definitely have to keep making shifts right now too. Oh no, sorry, that's okay. Yes, good. I'm glad you got it. And Johnny said, I realized that I wouldn't show up as boldly until every part of my life was perfect. And I remember I'm here to help women create the marriage of their dreams. And I've done that just because my business is not as successful as the past. Yeah, I can still teach on what I know and have embodied in my marriage. I'd love your thoughts on worthiness in business. Yeah, totally. I think I think it's such a toxic idea in the personal development space that like you have to have all of your shit together to teach anything. Even like business, right? Like I don't have to be perfect in business to teach on business. I have to be smart enough to know what's wrong when something's wrong and pivot and adjust and all of those kind of things. So even in marriage, like you don't even have to have the perfect marriage to help with marriage. Like you have to have like the skill set, the philosophy, and you have to be someone who's like willing to like do the things you're asking other people to do, I think. So yeah, I feel like that idea that like, perfection is what we're all striving for before we can teach is not it. And I also think like, those people always fall from pedestals. Like the I am perfect, look at me always has something that fall like some way they fall from a pedestal at some point because fucking none of us are. So personally for me, I think it's much safer in business to just be honest about all of that, right? Versus feeling like you're supposed to achieve this state because it's just never going to get there. And honestly, it's usually built on kind of false pretenses in my experience. Yeah. Yes. Perfection and the commitment to evolution. Exactly. 100%. Yes, totally. Good. I'm glad that was helpful. Sorry. Okay. What else do I want to talk about? With regard to like what it takes versus, what people want to do. Oh, okay. So another thing I want to say there is I feel like, again, what it takes versus what people want to do. I think that it can be so easy at that point for us or our industry or whatever to go into the like, people don't want it bad enough kind of thing. And I just want to be really, really careful that that's not how this is getting framed. It's not like, oh, nobody wants to treat their business like a business bad enough. They don't want it bad enough. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying is because things have changed, I think that we have to have a lens that helps us adjust to those changes within our own boundaries and desires and wishes and all of those things, right? So meaning like maybe what has changed is I can't just be on 13 platforms repurposing stuff all over it. Like I want to go on one and like really, really nail that one. Okay, fine. Let's create a great strategy for that. Like, I don't want to be everywhere and I don't want to be making new shit for 13 places. Like, I'm not saying you should have to like want to burn out. That's not it. But I think that the point is like, it's also the answer isn't nothing either. Hold on, let me just grab this question. So does that make sense? I'm not like landing this quite right, but it's not you must want to do everything or you don't want it bad enough, but the answer also can't be you shouldn't have to do anything. So to me, the answer is get the right support. That's going to help you figure out how to navigate new times like this. That's going to figure out what's your way of doing this in this current climate with these current strategies that are working in this current season. Like what actually fits you the best. That's really the point I want to make is we should be like getting the support for that. And we should be asking ourselves that. Because when we kind of put our head in the sand and go, nothing's changing, it's totally fine. Or, oh, I'm supposed to just work my face off. Like neither of those work long term. But if we can't hit that middle ground, I think it's hard. But that doesn't mean like nobody wants it bad enough. I think there are like a million pieces of context for why someone wouldn't want to, show up and be a TikTok superstar and be on Instagram stories all day and go live 4 times a week in and it like that's totally fair. That's not at all what it has to be. But I also think that speaks to a conversation that nobody seems to want to have in our industry, which is around like, changing our expectations of, what we want our business to do and do for us. I think that this like intense pressure in our industry to kind of like barely work, but have like a 7-figure business and a perfect life and travel all the time and is just not realistic or sustainable in the way that it kind of gets presented. And so I think that's a part of this conversation too, is like, we need the right support to have goals and aspirations that actually align with us and aren't just like driven by this perfect narrative, Thank you, Andrani, with this combo. Shari said, any observations or perspectives regarding type of business model right now, coaching versus done for you or products? Well, I mean, I think it all has its place, just as it always has, but I think for different reasons. I honestly think done for you is really interesting right now, because when you talk about the gap between what people want to do and what it takes, like done for you can really fill that gap. So personally, I think done for you is a really interesting model right now. I think products still work. I certainly have clients that have products that are still working, but I also think it has to solve a really, really specific pain point. If it's just going to make them feel more overwhelmed or just add more stuff to people's plates, I don't think that's it right now. And honestly, I think same with coaching, right? Like, I think coaching right now really needs to be about helping people wade through the overwhelm instead of just telling them more of what to do, you know? Let's see. Okay. Mandy said, to follow up on my question about being in the business for a minute. Oh, perfect. Mandy, it was you. Thank you. I have been in teaching and doing it online now with a team, and I'm practically doing it just to get the income each month for the bills. It feels each month that I have to invest a ton of energy in staff and uplift them, yet I can see a shift in the lack of work ethic in the students and the constant battle to get them working. It feels very overwhelming, and I wonder what your take is if we are putting out content to educate on the changes in education, but parents don't seem to want to acknowledge the traditional education system needs to change. Yeah, Mandy, I mean, I feel like there's so much at play there, right? Like it's sort of like a systemic issue is kind of what I'm hearing you saying. Like it's more systemic than just your business. And so I think like that's probably something to think about. It's almost like the coaching industry shifts in a sense, right? It's like, here's how things are right now. Like, who do you want to be in relation to that? And if it feels like who you're being in relation to that is not what feels good to you and you're just doing it for the money, I think that's certainly worth looking at and worth shifting. But I do think it can be really hard to be kind of like working in a system that you don't feel great about. But also, like, I always think about that in terms of the coaching industry of like, well, what do I want to do to change that? And that it always makes me feel on fire and lit up for it. I don't know if that does anything for you or if it just shows you that maybe you just don't want to be part of it, but that's maybe something to think about. Yes, it's systemic, right? Yeah. Shantae said things have shifted and we get to shift with them. Yes, totally. And Johnny says, yes, I was sharing in my mastermind about seasons of focus instead of trying to do it all at once. 100%. I feel like a lot of the industry response has been share your hot takes. So that's added to the polarization because all of these thoughtless hot takes circulating around. Right. It's my mom has this very annoying trait, you guys, where she'll share something with just like absolute certainty that she has fucking no clue about, but she says it like she really knows. And I constantly am like, oh, okay. And then I'm like, wait, how do you know that? And she was like, oh, I don't know. But she's like always so certain in her delivery, and it drives me bonkers. And I feel like that's like half the coaching industry, but we don't know everyone or the back end or the behind the scenes enough to kind of be discerning about like, but are you sure? Is that actually working for you? Or is that just like a really, really sexy marketing thing that's going to make people buy from you or that's going to like create buzz? So yes, Shari, I totally agree with you. I experience this in real life often. And it is very fascinating. Contextless hot takes are my kryptonite, Michelle said. So funny. Wait. Or what are going to fuel my rage era? Probably what fueled mine as well, Michelle. I got to imagine. My dad does the same as your mom. Oh my God, Mandy, I cannot send you enough love because it just bonkers. Yes, so I think that's true. That like this idea of like share your hot takes, like yes, absolutely. And I think that's maybe not always done with like a lot of discernment, and then we don't consume it with discernment, and so everyone is like uber confused. But I really think it's kind of like you're definitely not alone. I really think it's kind of like we got to get back to like what makes sense for me. Yes, I will have to work in my business. No, it does not need to be all the time. I mean, it feels like we're going back to basics. Like even most of the strategies that I see working really well for my clients right now are like the back to basic kind of stuff. And I feel like it's what our industry has almost conditioned us to eye roll or think we're too good for or too entitled for, like, oh my God, but like I shouldn't have to like get on a call with someone, or I shouldn't have to like write content about why someone should hire me. Like they should just know, like there's so many things like that, right? And it's just, I think it's really done everyone a bit of a disservice. Denise said, question, I think one of the things I heard a lot about was to be well known for one thing. I'm a business coach and I help my clients with a lot of things. For example, I didn't niche down as marketing or sales coach. I'm curious what your thoughts are about this. Shari said thought leadership can be shared without being an unpopular opinion or a hot take. Shari, now all I want to do is go write like 5 posts that start with hot take or unpopular opinion. I'm kidding. I won't. I'm teasing. Okay, Denise, to answer your question. Okay, so I think there's nuance to that. I'm actually going to do a live stream on that coming up. I can't remember when I'm doing it, but I definitely am going to do a live stream on this because I think that there's like multiple things I want to say to that. But like I'll give you the Cliff Notes question or Cliff Notes answer that I have, which is I think 2 things can be true here. I don't think that you have to niche to build a business that you like. I do think that if someone wants really, really rapid growth, niching is very much an important part of that. And I think this is where sometimes people get frustrated is they're like, I don't want to niche, but I want to like go 0 to 1 million in a year. And it's like that, like those don't live together for me, right? Like I am not super niche at all. I guess I am in the sense that I only focus on one-on-one, but my message is very broad and not niche at all. I have no like intention though, that with that, I'm ever going to be like an Instagram celebrity or really blow up in that way. You know, I have a client who went from about 250 to 300K to 1 million in like 1 year. And it's because she niched and got really, really specific. I even see that honestly, and again, I'll talk about this in the other live stream. I even see it with like what's happened with us in Dateable versus how A Lit Up Life grew. Like they're just really different because Dateable is so niche and specific. The way in which I get asked to do things or present for people or the kind of like invitations I get are so different there because of how niche it is. It's just easier in some ways. So it's not that you have to, if that's not what you're after. Like if you're like, I just want like a really amazing coaching business, I do not think that's required. If you're like, I'm really trying for something much, much, much bigger than that, I want really fast growth, et cetera, et cetera. I do think niching and being so locked in on a specific message is one of the strongest ways to get there. Okay. Mandy said, going back to foundations, you need to have one. I feel a lot of people think they can skip it and add it later. Totally. And I think a lot of our industry almost like eye rules the foundation. So I get why people think that, but it's just, it makes your business so hard. Shari said insiders will get it. Yes. Shantae said, totally agree. I think niching matters more when you're scaling, but if you want to grow more quickly, niche, if you're okay with maybe a slower burn, then it's okay to stay a generalist. I've been more a generalist coach since I started and have had great success with it, but I'm also okay with growing at a slower pace, but also slow in our industry is hilarious. I agree, Shantae. Look, my experience is exactly what you just wrote here. Like I've always been more of like the generalist coach, and it took me 6 years to get to 1 million. And in the context of our industry, I think it's like, oh my God, 6 years. But in the greater context, the fact that I got to $1 million a year business in 6 years is fucking bananas. So like, yes, everything you said, yes. Hilarious in that it took 1 year to make your first 6 figures. And in our industry, that's considered slow, but people will pursue 6-figure career for years. Exactly. You couldn't have said it better, spot on. I think that's exactly what it is. And you know, again, to like get to a 6-figure business as like a generalist is totally possible. Like it for sure is. It's just that like, again, we're like, it should be faster, it should be faster, it should be faster. And I think that makes people crazy. I resonate with your past so much. 1 million in 6 years. Yes. Okay. We're holding that vision for you, Shantae. That's what's happening for you. Your million is coming in 6 or not in 6 years, 6 years total. I love that. I feel like it's harder to sell. I feel like it's harder to sell free shit to strangers. I have way more luck if there's previous touch points, but my personal experience with selling it has been post 2020. Do you have thoughts? Harder to sell shit to strangers. If there's previous touch points. Yeah. Totally. I agree with that, Shari. I think it's the trust thing, right? Like I think people need a longer build up and they need to feel like they trust you more than maybe they did in the past. And so I think referrals, personal outreach, touch points with someone before the sale, all of those things make a really big difference right now. I agree with you on that. Again, even my clients that are much further along in business right now, like are doing the personal touch points and stuff like that, because it really does just matter right now. I think even like buyer timelines are so much longer. I've been talking about that for a while, but I think that's still the case. So anyway, all of that to say, yes, I agree with you. I don't think that's bad or weird or like something, off. I think that that's just kind of the case right now, if that makes sense. Yeah. Sorry for the poor wording. I meant more in terms of free sessions. Oh yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. Like not just sell stuff to strangers, but you're saying, yeah, I still think same. I do. Yeah. Even if those touch points are like small, like you connected with them on a post or whatever, I think that's all okay. But I do think we want to feel some measure of trust first. Yeah. Okay, cool. Let me see what else I have in my notes here. Okay, I think the basically summary just here is it's okay that things are different and we want to adapt to them. And I think we also want to be honest about that. I think that's one of the biggest things that I kind of wanted to point out today is like, I think where all of this gets sticky is when it feels like some people are saying like, oh no, it's not any harder, it's easier. And it's not any harder, it's easier. And you shouldn't have to do all of these foundational things to get it. And I think it makes people really crazy. And it makes anyone that feels like, oh, they need to put out the free thing, or they need to go connect with people first, or they need whatever, that they're doing it wrong. And so I think that like one of the most important things about this conversation for me today is just to say like, hey, things are changing. If we can all be honest about them, it gets a lot easier, because then we can all kind of like crowdsource how this stuff is happening and like use it to grow, instead of it feeling like I'm hearing that it should be super perfect and easy and I shouldn't have to work, and I'm not seeing that in practice, and it's starting to make me really second guess my business, and I don't want that for anyone. So that is kind of my point. It is challenging in different ways, and ultimately get the support that helps you navigate that. Get the support that's willing to acknowledge that, while calling you to hold a good mindset around it, while calling you to show up and do the things. Like those don't have to like not live together. Like I'm still a big believer in like, get your mindset right, all of that kind of stuff. And that is backed by get your strategy right and show up and do the things. It's always all of those three for me. So I cannot stress that enough. Like make sure you're discerning who you're listening to, who you're learning from in this context. And yeah, like let's remember that like a lot of the foundational stuff is really still the stuff that always works and continues to work, especially if you just adapt it and tweak it a little bit to like what's happening with your audience and what you see here. And like, it really does get easier from there. There's usually not this like big giant secret, Okay, so all that to say, I have a 101 spot open. I know I mentioned this at the beginning, but I know a lot of you weren't on yet. So I do have one 101 spot open now. Applications are open until the 10th, so through Thursday. So if you want that spot, make sure to apply. If you have questions, reach out. Yeah, really excited about this. It's the first client I have taken on this year besides the NFT podcast client. So this feels like a really big, exciting deal. So if you want to be part of that, I would love to have you apply. Such a great conversation per usual. Thank you. Happy Monday. Yes. Thank you, Shantae. Thank you, Alessia. Mandy said, I just realized you aren't wearing black. Mandy, don't get crazy. There is black under here. We're getting there, but like there is still black that is present. Do not worry. So funny. I have a photo shoot coming up at the end of this month, and like every website I've been looking for like clothes, or like I do the like Newly rental subscription, and I was looking on there and I literally just go on, hit black and filter. So anyway, unlikely I don't have on something that has that in it in some way. Okay, amazing guys. I hope you have a beautiful week. Remember, for commenting, you're entered to win $100 gift card. Applications are due on the 10th. I am so pumped. If you have questions, reach out, and I hope you guys have a beautiful week. All right, bye guys.